I'm glad to have you this afternoon. My name is Oluwaseun Elizabeth Oyeti, and I'll be presenting my dissertation that is all about unveiling the impact of social anxiety, navigating burnout and social connectedness among aspiring counselors. According to the World Health Organization, mental health refers to a state of psychological well-being that enable individuals to recognize their own strengths, develop skills to handle the typical stress of life, engage in creative and productive activities, and also make valuable contributions to their communities. In recent years, the mental health field has increasingly acknowledged the intricate relationships between psychological constructs like social anxiety, burnout, and social connectedness. And this interconnection is especially relevant for groups that encounter ongoing interpersonal demands, such as students, healthcare professionals, educators, and aspiring counselors. While each of these factors has been extensively researched in isolation before now, understanding their interactions is complex and it requires thorough synthesis. Trying to refresh our memory a bit by providing some information on the factors I listed for this study. The first one is social anxiety. And social anxiety is a mental health disorder defined by a fear of being scrutinized or negatively judged by others. It does not merely exist on its own, but interacts with wider psychosocial and occupational implications. Then occupational burnout. Employees in every organization encounter stresses, they encounter pressures and challenges that often lead to various complications. One of the consequences of these stresses is burnout. And so, burnout is characterized by physical, mental, and emotional fatigue, manifesting as low morale, negative attitudes towards clients, negative attitudes towards work, and decreased work efficiency. On the other hand, social connectedness is defined as a subjective feeling of closeness and belonging to others, and this has emerged as a vital protective factor against various psychological issues. This will lead us to the aim of the study. The aim of the study is to seek to analyze how social anxiety influences burnout levels in aspiring counselors and the dynamics of the relationship between social anxiety and social connectedness in those training to become counselors. The research question inquires if social anxiety impacts the correlation between burnout levels experienced by counseling professionals and their sense of social connectedness. The study has four hypotheses, and the hypotheses are: the first one is there will be a positive correlation between social anxiety and occupational burnout. The second one is there will be a negative correlation between occupational burnout and social connectedness within the socially anxious group. The third one is there will be a positive correlation between occupational burnout and social connectedness within the non-socially anxious group. And the fourth one is social anxiety will mediate the relationship between occupational burnout and social connectedness. Under method, for the participant for the study consists of 56 students of Masters in Counseling programs in all the universities in the UK who were 18 years and above of age and have practiced counseling in their course and have also started seeing clients for placement. The recruitment method used was through social media announcements, Instagram, and WhatsApp accounts. Quantitative research approach was used in the study, and participants were invited to complete a self-administered online questionnaire set up on Site Toolkit and Sonar. The questionnaire was incorporated with validated instruments to measure the primary variables of interest, and the instruments were social phobia inventory, which was used for social anxiety, burnout assessment tool for occupational burnout, and social connectedness scale for social connectedness. In testing hypothesis 1 to 3, which concerned the relationship between social anxiety, burnout at work, and social connectedness, Spearman correlation was used. And also in testing for hypothesis 4, process macro was used, and this was within the regression analysis tool in SPSS. From the results, I was able to find for hypothesis 1 that the analysis indicates a significant positive correlation between social anxiety and occupational burnout. For hypothesis 2, using the social phobia inventory, the participants were divided into two groups. The first group was socially anxious group, and the second was non-socially anxious group. And they have 28 participants per group. So we have 28 participants for socially anxious group and 28 participants for non-socially anxious group. The Pearson correlation analysis for the socially anxious group revealed a very weak negative correlation between occupational burnout and social connectedness, and this result was not statistically significant. For hypothesis 3, the analysis for this group showed a positive correlation between occupational burnout and social connectedness, but it was still not statistically significant. For hypothesis 4, finding shows that the overall effect of occupational burnout on social connectedness was not statistically significant. The direct effect of occupational burnout on social connectedness, while controlling for social anxiety, was also not significant, and also the indirect effect of burnout on social connectedness through social anxiety was not statistically significant. Based on the first hypothesis, the findings indicate a positive relationship between occupational burnout and social anxiety, and this suggests that as levels of occupational burnout rise, levels of social anxiety also tend to increase. The relationship between these two variables is significant, which demonstrates a moderate positive association, and this aligned with investigation by Maslach and Leiter and Chirico et al. And their investigation demonstrated a strong connection between occupational burnout and emotional distress, including anxiety symptoms. With respect to the second hypothesis, findings show that in the socially anxious cohort, the lack of a significant correlation between occupational burnout and social connectedness implies that occupational burnout does not notably affect feelings of social connectedness among socially anxious individuals. So for the socially anxious group, occupational burnout does not significantly impact their sense of connectedness. Consequently, the second hypothesis of this study, proposing a negative correlation between occupational burnout and social connectedness in this group, is not supported by the results obtained. These outcomes somewhat contradict findings from other studies that have investigated the relationship between social anxiety and occupational burnout. For instance, Netta and Brook 2021 reported that individuals with social anxiety often experience lower social connectedness due to avoidance behaviors, which could subsequently intensify feelings of burnout. However, this study did not find supportive evidence for a negative relationship between occupational burnout and connectedness in socially anxious individuals. And One possible reason could be that social anxiety itself might be a more significant factor influencing social isolation and disconnection than occupational burnout. Nagata et al. Suggested that socially anxious individuals frequently find it challenging to connect with others because of their fear of maybe negative judgment, which might obscure the role of occupational burnout on their sense of social connectedness. Based on the third hypothesis, in the group without social anxiety, there is slightly significant positive correlation between occupational burnout and social connectedness. And this indicates that while there appears to be a positive relationship between occupational burnout and social connectedness, it is not strong or reliable enough for a definitive conclusion. So therefore, the third hypothesis regarding a positive correlation in the non-socially anxious group is not entirely validated, as the results just lack statistical significance. Velando Soriano et al. Argue that individuals going through burnout might reach out to others for emotional backing or to share their burdens, potentially explaining the slight positive correlation found in this study. Furthermore, the primary aim of this research was to investigate whether social anxiety mediates the connection between occupational burnout and social connectedness among aspiring counselors, as stated in hypothesis 4. Although it was predicted that social anxiety would act as a mediator, the result did not support this hypothesis. The findings show that occupational burnout was a significant predictor of heightened levels of social anxiety, and this aligns with earlier research indicating that chronic stress and emotional exhaustion, key aspects of burnout, may lead to increased self-consciousness, fear of negative appraisal, and avoidance behaviors typically linked to social anxiety. Nevertheless, in contrast to expectations, social anxiety did not significantly influence social connectedness, and the indirect relationship between burnout and connectedness mediated by social anxiety was not statistically significant as well. And what does this imply? It implies that while individuals suffering from burnout may experience heightened social anxiety, it does not necessarily result in diminished perceptions of social connectedness. One potential explanation is that aspiring counselors, even when feeling anxious in social situations, may still preserve supportive peer connections or function adequately within structured training settings that naturally provide opportunities for connection. And also, how people view and display social anxiety, burnout, and social connectedness is also greatly influenced by culture. This may be cultural influence. For example, in certain collectivities or communal cultures, the sense of social connectedness might remain robust despite internal experiences of anxiety due to strong external networks or social support expectations. And this might mitigate the adverse effects of anxiety on one's perceived sense of belonging or social connectedness. And this would lead us to the last thing we'll be discussing about, which is the limitation and further study. The absence of significant correlations between burnout and social connectedness in both the socially anxious and non-socially anxious participants indicates that social connectedness may be shaped by various other factors, which may include individual coping strategies, anxiety severity, or the specific work environment of the subject. So future investigations could build on these results by examining additional possible mediators or moderators, such as resilience or coping strategies that could affect the link between burnout and social connectedness. Banuzi et al. Pointed out the significance of resilience in mitigating the adverse effects of burnout, which may be a crucial element to investigate in upcoming research on aspiring counselors. On this note, I would like to thank you for listening. If you have any question, you can drop it in the comment section. Thank you.